show just about 17 minutes after the hour of 7 o'clock. Now we continue our conversation on 16 days of activism against gender-based violence with lecturer head for the Institute for Gender and Development Studies at the University of the West Indies, Dr. Suan Bharat. Dr. Bharat, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on Now.
Good morning to you, Mr. Souza. Good to be here, and thank you for having us.
Of course, and welcome back again.
Yes, thank you very much.
Now, Dr. Bharat, I just want to start off the conversation with a bit of context. So could you just tell us exactly the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence? What exactly are we focusing on when we recognize something like that?
Now, the 16 days of activism is something, incidentally, quite a lot of Caribbean feminist scholars, advocates, and activists met several years ago, some decades ago, to work out a way to understand, express, commemorate, and continue advocacy to end gender based violence. The 16 days occurs globally. It's a global initiative that calls for the elimination of gender based violence in general, especially as it is perpetrated against women and girls due to the prevalent statistics. And it is recognized every year from the 25th of November, which was last Friday, until the 10th of December.
Right. And as a tertiary level institution, what is the UWI doing to commemorate this day?
Well, this year we've come together in solidarity. The theme for 2022 is Unite. Unite to end violence, particularly against women and girls, but gender based violence in general, as well as there is a call to action to end femicide. So, UWI is reaching out, expressing ourselves to lead by example, to lead by what we are doing. So, last week, Wednesday, we reaffirmed our commitment to our work to end child sexual abuse in partnership with the Bankers Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Then on Friday, which was the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and Girls, we collaborated with the Student Services Division Community Engagement Unit to sit together to walk a mile in her shoes or in each other's shoes, that kind of empathetic community engagement. We had a panel discussion at the Dagger Hall. We were supposed to walk and light candles, but the panel discussion was so vibrant that our time finished and we didn't walk. But not from today, since we are remote due to the weather,
Yes.
but until December 10th, we will be having a series of sort of silent conversations through display. And this is where the Clothesline project, which is being led by the students, the student services kind of commemorative voice and standing in solidarity with victims, as well as our art against violence, will be taking place with displays of these messages across campus.
Yeah. Now, Dr. Bharat, tell us about the Clothesline project, because I know that the UWI itself is doing so much, but then you have the student services also involved. So tell us about that project.
Okay, so the Clothesline project is led by the Student Guild, the Gender Affairs Officer, and the Student Guild in collaboration with the IGDS Ignite and the rest of the Student Guild. The Clothesline project is something that happens globally. It's a global effort that's being, transplanted and taken up for its purpose, for its reach, for its impact in the community. What it aims is to use visual display in actual T-shirts on a clothesline, so it's literal, to express zero tolerance to gender-based violence and, of course, sexual violence within our community and within our society. It is a way of standing in solidarity with survivors and also greater sensitization within our student population, many of them now on campus for the first time since opening back up from the pandemic, and would have encountered forms of GBV or sexual violence within their communities, within their homes, and possibly within their peer groups. So the clothesline is symbolic. It's a messaging frame where you can see anonymously shared stories, in our case, across our halls, where people share their story and you recognize yourself in the other, which is what empathy is. So you say, oh, I never really thought about that. Oh my God, look, somebody else is like me. Also, here's another person who's experiencing what I'm experiencing. I'm not alone. So it's akin to what happened in 2016, 2017 in a different way, where we had Life in Leggings and people were sharing their stories across social media in about 5 different Caribbean countries, 5 to 7. So in this way, the students come together to speak to each other through the symbol of the clothes. We wear
Right.
clothes. We wear our pain on our back, our bodies. We embody that experience, and our bodies tell a story. And our story is shared through the garments, which we use to express ourselves, our gender relations every day. So the Clothesline Project, which is a global exercise and which happens in different spaces in different ways, is meant to really express that recognition and solidarity and engagement with each other, especially as survivors of gender-based violence.
Yeah. Now, Dr. Barrett, while we have this Clothesline Project, which is giving a voice to those who would have been victims, and of course, I know that whenever you experience a form of gender-based violence, the first thing, of course, is to contact the police service. Is there a unit that students could go to on campus if they are ever a victim of GBV?
Definitely, we do have campus security services for reporting, which is directly linked to the police service. I believe it's the St. Joseph Police um, station. That is for security. One can make a report. If one is living on hall, you go to your hall manager. If you happen to be in a classroom, students may alert a lecturer, but go directly to the security services. Where there is need for psychosocial support, the campus health services, mental health services is there to assist students, to support them through what is, of course, a very traumatic experience mentally, psychologically, emotionally, and where physical health, there are these services as well. Referrals might be made to larger
Yeah.
entities for further treatment.
Now, while it is, of course, while it is sent all the way up to the police service, if a report is made, will you be take it upon themselves to launch an investigation, especially if the perpetrator and the victim share similar classes, if they're living within the same hall? How will the university treat with this?
The UE has a clear policy when it comes to gender-based violence, particularly sexual harassment. Other forms of that are criminal acts will go to the police, but any such misconduct or unprofessional behavior or behavior that is not expected for a student according to codes of conduct will be investigated by the necessary committees or necessary parties who have been charged with that responsibility. Now, of course, investigations have to go through a thorough process, and sometimes they can be frustrating for survivors because you really want resolve. And so I just want to take a moment to encourage us to express empathy with those who may have reported and are waiting long for a result, to say that sometimes it is very, very difficult for a survivor when they report and they feel like, okay, things are not happening. On the other side of that, investigations are conducted and have to be conducted with as much thoroughness as possible to ensure fairness, justice, and right to all parties. As you know, gender justice is a central pillar of the university.
Yeah.
So definitely investigations take place, and where investigations prove the need for necessary hearings and interventions, they are then going to be exercised.
Yeah. Just going back a bit, Dr. Barrett. So if somebody reports somebody else, a student, will there be a separation, or it depends on the findings of the investigation?
Well, it depends on the level of the report. So, for example, I'm a lecturer myself, and I've had students come to me, for example, a very specific case, without mentioning anyone, of course. A student, they were working in a group, and some members of the group came and said, Dr. B, there's this one student who is stalking us on our WhatsApp and social media and saying inappropriate things and sending body part pics and so forth. In that way, my first line of defense was to intervene and, say, stop it, desist immediately, and to separate them from that group so that they wouldn't have that interaction. Once I intervened in that particular case, the student who was doing what they were doing stopped. Now, let's say that student did not. Then we would have to report it to our sexual harassment secretariat, who then intervenes to take a full report and start to investigate. If, for example, it escalates beyond that into, let's say, physical forms of sexual violence, assault, etc., we go directly to the security and the police. So it depends on the level and the level of reporting and what the students wish. Sometimes students come and say something and say, I don't want you to say anything. I don't want to. And so you have to try to support them as much as possible and try to encourage them to make the reports according to, policy and law. But the first line of defense is to try to de-escalate and protect the person who is under threat.
Yeah. I wanted to just ensure that we nail down on that point, because I know that there's some people who might have been survivors, and so they wanted to know that, that this is going to be happening, and at least there's some form of redress, to whoever the perpetrator is. So thanks so much, Dr. Barrett, for clearing that up. I mean, thank you for coming on the show. Before we go, final thoughts?
Yes, well, I just want to say for this year, first of all, we have our Clothesline project. We're also sharing secret stories from survivors about how they manage this issue of gender-based violence, which the Student Services Division is collecting. We at IGDS are also inviting you to submit your art pieces. You may have already done these pieces, or you're inspired over these days until December 10th to share a new piece that makes a statement against femicide, against the killing of women and girls. You can call us, you can write to us at igds@sta.ue.edu and send a piece so that we can display it and people can have that kind of visceral conversation. Further, we would like to reinforce that we are aiming to educate and combat sexual harassment as part of gender-based violence, because we know it's a central part. So we are really encouraging folks to stand against sexual harassment, stand against sexual violence, and stand against gender-based violence. Of course, if you're an artist, send your art forward and we will display it for the period.
Dr. Barrett, thank you so much for joining us on the Now Show. And of course, I know that we're going to have you back again soon just to talk about other projects that the UE is involved in. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
And that is lecturer and head of the Institute for Gender and Development Studies at the UE, that is Dr. Barrett. Of course, up next, we're going to be talking about a play that is happening, The Tempest, that is going to be put on by the National Theatre Arts Production Company. We are going to, National Theatre Arts Production Company, or National Theatre Arts Production. We're going to take a break and be right back. Stay with us.